To make the national dialogue a success story, who needs to do what at this critical stage?
Negative thinking, peace as well as conflict starts in mind.
At this moment in its history, why Ethiopia needs a national dialogue in the first place?
People differ almost at every issue. Whenever you raise, they would disagree.
What major accomplishments has it achieved?
So we have talked to about 90,000 people.
How does the Commission assess its credibility?
The best way to build credibility is not really speaking, but acting, showing in action.
How objective, how independent is the Commission in itself and in its operation on the ground?
No one is imposing their ideas on the national dialogue. That is a point. That is a core.
How inclusive is the Commission, particularly in including those actors who are wielding enormous political influence in this country?
Our focus is inclusion of ideas rather than physical political parties or physical persons.
So you are affirming me that armed groups who are trying to topple the government with the force of arms are also welcomed in the national dialogue process?
Absolutely welcome.
Do you think, Commissioner, this commission will end that curse?
You know, anyone who starts a new project should start with optimistic view, and the answer must be optimistic.
Ethiopian political elites do not see eye to eye on critical issues of statehood, be it the national flag, the state structure, the constitution, the regional demarcation, identity, the list goes on. To address this deep-seated division, Ethiopia established the National Dialogue Commission in December 2021. In 10 months' time, the commission is expected to accomplish its tasks. To make the National Dialogue Commission a success story, who needs to do what at this critical stage? To discuss this important question, I have a guest today. My guest is a commissioner at the National Dialogue Commission of Ethiopia, Dr. Yonas Adaye. You're watching Messenger from Amhara Media Corporation. I'm Yohannes Lijalem. I'm delighted to have you here at this program, Dr. Yonas.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and having me.
So let's begin with this question. At this moment in its history, why Ethiopia needs a national dialogue in the first place?
I think that is a soul-searching question. It might take nearly maybe a day or even a year to precisely scientifically respond to, but just for the sake of convenience and to save the audience time as well, for three reasons we need, at this time, at this juncture of history, a national dialogue in Ethiopia. Number one, there is a dire need for national consensus because people differ almost at every issue. Whenever you raise, they would disagree, including flag or Ethiopia as a nation or the constitution or anything common you start that brings you together, then you can see deep division immediately. Hence, there is a need for national consensus to be reached. Number two, people happen to suspect their very government. They elected, and at the same time, they ask questions so as to build trust between the state or government, which represents the state, and the society or the people. There is a need for national dialogue. And thirdly, wherever people are disappointed with, say, living standards, identity questions, or being represented in central governments, or even the regional governments, whenever there are some differences, rather than coming together to a round table to debate, discuss, dialogue, they prefer going through the jungle, start killing brothers. Hence, the need for national dialogue to entrench the culture of national dialogue in Ethiopia. In sum, number one, to build national consensus. Number two, to build trust between the state and society. And third, make national dialogue or dialogue a culture, a peace culture, peace by peaceful means to deal with all differences. These 3 points necessitated national dialogue at this juncture in Ethiopian history. I would say world history as well. As you can see, people dividing, people going from one extreme to another extreme, polarized views, almost, not only in Ethiopia, even globally as well. So these are some of fundamental reasons for the need for national dialogue in Ethiopia today.
Established 3 years ago, in December 2021, what major accomplishments has it achieved?
Right. We started with 5 pillars because national dialogue as an institution is new phenomena in Ethiopia. It's a new phenomenon. Dialogue is not new, but National Dialogue Commission is new. The institution is new. So that being the case, then we really have to dig deeper so as to understand how we can go about it. So the 5 pillars, the first one is sort of exploring even what's meant by national dialogue. So how other countries have exercised it, what their failures, successes were, what we could possibly learn from their successes and their failures, what success factors and failure factors were, which ones could possibly fit for Ethiopia's context, socio-political context of today. And the second stage was preparation, understanding Ethiopia's context. Even though we were born and brought up in Ethiopia, most of us in the commission, but change is the only constant law in natural science, in philosophy of science as a whole. Things are changing. Things are always dynamic. So we have to understand Ethiopia. In this preparation time, we have to talk to regional administrations, talk to professional associations, civic associations, religious establishments, and of course, governmental, non-governmental establishments as well. We did these things. The third one is the process. The process is going down to the people, talk to the people, and of course, select participants to take part at regional level. In this regard, we have completed 12 regional administrative areas as a whole, 2 city administrations, including Addis Ababa and that of Derrida. So we have talked to about 90,000 people, and over 20,000 participants have been already prepared and selected. We, God willing, inshallah, are preparing to go to the Amhara region very shortly, in weeks' time, to start what we have completed in other parts of Ethiopia. Remember, we went to Gonda, we went to Desi, we went to Bahadar, and we really had our collaborators training already. But because of violence created in our northern part of Ethiopia, Amhara region, we had to halt some of the areas because of that conflict. But now, after having discussed with regional administration, with civic societies, with intellectuals, then we are to kick off as quickly as possible. The same is true with Tigray. We already discussed with Tigray provisional administration, with the leaders, and with university professors, and at the same time with civic association. And we are also ready, after, of course, having completed all side by side, as we do in Amhara region. And at the same time, in the third pillar, in the third chapter, we also have to conduct, prepared again, in a couple of weeks' time, we start collecting general agenda from at regional level. So we are going to conduct regional national dialogue on 12 regional areas. We might kick off in one of those regions. You might possibly, of course, you've heard when we were reporting to the parliament that we could start in Addis. So we'll notify all media in Ethiopia, including public, private, and print as well as electronic media as quickly as possible. The first level is delivery. Delivery is agenda collected, is to be identified. The identified one is to be finally selected and set, and then of course sent to the parliament and to the executive body. And our fifth is follow up and monitor how what people have proposed is being implemented, holding even the government, the executive accountable as well if they don't follow in the line with the people demanded, because these people are their source of the political power, because it is an elected government. It is the government itself which set up the national dialogue. The national dialogue, even though independent, even though neutral, even though inclusive, it's also accountable to the Ethiopian parliament, which of course accountable to the people. So these 5 pillars are our guiding lines, and we are now in between process and delivery. So we are not following sort of sequential processes, but rather simultaneous. While conducting national dialogue at regional level in 12 regions, we also keep on conducting selection of participants in Amhara as well as Tigray region. That's where we are, John.
What major challenges has the Commission faced thus far?
3 challenges. The first one, negative thinking. Peace as well as conflict starts in mind. So that negative mentality, it's impossible. We'd like to do this first. We'd like to do that. So those negative thinking, those Newtonian thinking of this linear processes, always following, do this, stop all conflicts in the country, then we can move on to discussion. But history shows us that while conflicts are going on, you can also have at the same time debates and discussions. This is so natural and normal. We can see it from around the world. So that negative thinking, which is the first one, seeing things almost all the time from a pessimistic angle, that was a problem. And the second problem, from ideas to words that are negative words, that are sometimes misrepresenting what's being done and in Ethiopia in general and in national dialogue in particular, disseminating hate speeches, fake news, and spreading lies, hatred among people, so as to create some obstacles for national dialogue not to succeed. The third one is concrete, from ideas to words, from words to conflict on the ground. So those conflicts on the ground in some parts of South, even in central Ethiopia, while we were working, we really faced. And of course, when we were conducting this participants election at Oromia regional state level, we had 1 or 2 just people even got killed while coming. Some, were kidnapped. We have completed successfully, and in 12 regions we have completed. So that is the negativity at idea level, negativity at word level, and finally conflict on the ground. These were our main obstacles. We can see very positive and cooperative activities from opposition parties, from civic associations, from government, from religious establishments, from our elders. So you can see the positive winning the negative.
On the one hand, people wanted those conflicts to stop and then to proceed to the national dialogue. But these things in reality aren't happening. So that is why the major frustration may be, how can we have dialogue while there is conflict when there is instability? That seems a legitimate question, but there is this conundrum. We need this national dialogue because we have instability, I think.
You got it. You exactly got it. So sometimes it seems to be sort of chicken and egg question, but for us, honestly speaking, we have to understand and go beyond this Newtonian thinking of cause and effect and this stimulus response knowledge or epistemological structure. Thanks to quantum physics, quantum mechanics, transcendental peace thinking, that we don't simply see things as always cause and effect. No, they can transcend that. In peace studies, we don't simply put things, this conflict was caused by that factor. No, for one conflict, you may have a number of causes. Or one consequence could be caused by, again, one consequence could also lead to yet another conflict. So we say always the whole is greater than the sum total of its parts. We see things holistically. And we say evil and good could live side by side. Opposition ideas can be, they can be dealt with. This entanglement, that's a technical term in quantum physics and in quantum peace building studies, this entanglement can be disentangled when you coherently, holistically deal with them. See part, see whole as very much related dialectically with each other.
To make the national dialogue a success story, credibility is the most important factor. 3
Absolutely.
years on since its establishment, how does the Commission assess its credibility?
The credibility has been apparently widely built. The time we started, political parties, some of the political parties, 3 or 2 agreed to work with us, saying that this commission is not credible. This stands for a ruling party. And then after a year, over 50 political parties came together. In a few months' time, 3 new again, those who were in what's called caucus, came and signed an MOU to work together. The best way to build credibility is not really speaking, but acting, showing in action, because action speaks volumes rather than, as they say in art, a picture worth 1,000 words. So an action worth 1,000 words as well. So seeing is maybe sometimes believing. The best way is whether this national dialogue is inclusive or not, whether it reaches out to those who were excluded, whether it is truly participatory, as it's been an alpha and omega in its national dialogue proclamation there, establishment proclamation there. So the point for credibility is action, transparency, inclusivity. So that's what we can see. Time we started, people were really suspicious and skeptical, but now you can see them really embracing. And most of them, how can we help? Because the only option Ethiopia have today is dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue, not fighting with each other, not hate speeches. So now we realize that we really are independent. This is what we get from research. 3 research establishments, one from Hawassa University, another one NDI, funded by USAID, totally independent. Another one coming from just outside. They went their own way. Then finally, they came up with almost 80% of them, the need for national dialogue and trust to work together. And the limitations is still not reaching out through media, communication as one of our problems. So we can see that. That's the point of credibility, John.
The credibility is rising or is it falling?
It is absolutely rising. And we had this polling, opinion polls from independent research units. That's why I was quoting from Hawassa University, from USAID-led NDI Research Institute. We've got nothing to do with them. Then we got the research finding out coming as individuals also in Eastern, Western Ethiopia. Then we got the published articles, and we could also see that. So it is increasing from time to time. But our Achilles heel, our weak point is not reaching out to the community, particularly in remote areas, not using radios and local means there to reach out. So these were areas for us to improve. These are what we saw. But overall, it is very much increasing indeed.
How objective, how independent is the Commission in itself and in its operation on the ground?
Okay, independence and objectives. The 2 extremely difficult terms to define, because almost everything in universe is interdependent. Let me bring back to social sciences. The maybe most advanced country called USA is dependent on least advanced countries such as Djibouti for their survival. There's this give and take. This is all in interdependence. So this, rather than independence, interdependence is more common in human society. We work with opposition parties, for instance. We work with government, yes, with public media, particularly the media from private, again with civic societies, with religious establishments. We were taking part in with Muslims, also Christians, evangelical Christians, and you can see we are not isolated island living independently. For that is absolutely impossible. Well, again, quantum physics, that would tell you that there's no completely 100% dry weather as long as you are on Earth, because you have the other aspect at the same time, because they are so interrelated with each other. But again, independence in a sense, not being masterminded by someone else, not max flexing like it happened in Yemen, for instance, because GCE, that is Gulf Council, was funding it, then it was also able to give its own agenda. Then the commission was not independent because it was remote controlled. Ours is different. This is people's project. It's a public project. The very budget comes from the public, that is the state. Again, we are also working with international groups such as UNDP. We don't receive any money from a foreign agency directly, through UNDP, and then from Ministry of Finance. They all get together. From there, then we can get from Parliament 3, 4 being there. If we get started with engaging bilaterally, then I'll go for your idea of interdependence or independence question. We are functioning independently and interdependently with others in a give and take. The same is true with objectivity. Objective, but honestly speaking, in science again, is very much questionable. What is objective in social science is intersubjectivity. That is, you hear different ideas, opinions from different people.
Commissioner, sorry for interrupting, but to make the matter very simple for our audience, because you are talking in a very scholastic manner, and it's our obligation to make it very simple for our audience.
Sure.
When I say independent and objective, I mean from a particular interest group, let's say from the ruling party or the opposition party, or from the international community, or from a regional power. Are you free from the influence of those actors? That's my question.
Okay, that's exactly my answer. Intersubjectivity means we are working with the regional government, we're working with the central government, we're working with all political parties, particularly the council of all parties, political parties as a whole. They have an office, including ruling, opposition, then we are working with them as well. That's where what we call interdependence lies. And intersubjectivity lies. I simply put it in technical terms, as you rightly mentioned. To simplify it, we are working with all stakeholders. We are working under the umbrella of Ethiopia. Yes, with the opposition party. Yes, with the ruling party. Yes, with the national government. Yes, with the regional government. No one is influencing on us. No one is imposing their ideas on the national dialogue. That is a point. That is a core.
How inclusive is the Commission, particularly in including those actors who are wielding enormous political influence in this country?
John, that's great again. Ethiopia has 120 million people. You can't possibly humanly include 120 million and bring them together and discuss and dialogue with them. Humanly impossible. But it is possible to represent ideas of 120 million people. So our focus is inclusion of ideas rather than physical political parties or physical persons. So for those people who are in the fight, how are their ideas included? They claim that they're representing a quarter of a society. So you have to engage with the people there at regional level, at local level, such as civic societies, religious leaders, youth, intellectuals. So you have a simple example. In OLA, Oromo Liberation Army, which calls itself that way, when we failed to physically bring them, we had to go to their Abagada system, to their elders, to their churches, to their civic societies. That's how we conducted national dialogue in Oromia as a whole. The same route is to be followed as we go to Amhara region as well. But at the same time, even we are also happy to talk to the FANO or to the OLA as well directly. We have also attempted this one, still we are attempting, even we invited trusted third party, such as Red Cross Society, for they can cross the lines, they can talk to the parties in conflict, and they can even make it a third party in third country as well. So we are also happy to engage even outside of Ethiopia, debating with them, facilitating for them to debate, to bring their points of discussion, and then hammer out dialogue, come back to transform Ethiopia's conflicting situation into cooperation situation. So these are the ways that we are trying to do, including their ideas, number one. Number two, reaching out wherever they are indirectly, because you know from your scientific understanding that if someone is sick, you get a sample blood. Don't put the person as whole into the laboratory to find out the disease. So that sample is the idea that we are talking about. So at the idea level is possible, at physical level is possible, reaching out to the community is possible. That's how we are trying to do our level best to prove that we are inclusive.
So you are affirming to me that armed groups who are trying to topple the government with the force of arms are also welcomed in the national dialogue process?
Absolutely welcome.
There are ethno-nationalist political parties and groups in this country, and they have this enormous political influence in the country. So are you also trying to reach out to those actors?
Very much so. Very much so. We reach out through international research conferences, through, as we said, media. Some would directly talk to you while they're outside. You also engage you and then show their ideas in a very civilized manner, to be honest. They just, air out. These are the reasons for us not to take part in national dialogue. These are the reasons for us that we embrace the constitution itself. We don't like to be at any point touched on the constitution. There are others who completely are against holding this very national dialogue, and even, very national constitution. Even for we based our establishment on the national dialogue, they oppose us as well, because we went according to the existing rule of law, that is national constitution. So we are trying our level best, and because for us, John, to make it very clear, unity in diversity is almost natural order. If you just look at anything in outside nature, you can see variations, diversity. Diversity must not be a source for conflict. It should be celebrated rather. So we are very happy to really celebrate diversity. Differences should be respected. John, you haven't chosen to be born in this region, that region, that ethnic group, this ethnic group. This reality must be out. At the same time, your being who you are must be respected. You should be judged by the content of your character, your contribution, your competence, not the language you speak or where you were born, which religion you are following. So we, in this 21st century, we should really think at, that should fit for the 21st century as well. We can't go 17th or 18th century way of thinking. This is what really you might have also, you can check in our previous interview as well. This is exactly consistently that we are talking about. People must be respected for their integrity, their identity, their ideas. At the same time, we must have common ground to live together, a country called Ethiopia. So that's exactly where we are. We are to celebrate diversity. No, we are not against unity or diversity, but rather diversity, unity in diversity seems to be a beautiful way of the way forward for Ethiopia today.
Very recently, Chief Commissioner Professor Mesfin Arya announced to the media that in 10 months' time, the Commission will accomplish all its tasks. So we are at the critical stage in this dialogue process. So to make the national dialogue a success story, who needs to do what? Very briefly.
Number one, the media. As Amhara Media Corporation is doing marvelous jobs, to be honest, not only in English, but also in Amharic, in different languages. You are reaching out to the people because the media has a power of making or breaking by teaching people. This time, not only teaching, but also engaging people, making them meet the people, how they think, how they structure, how they frame, how they angle Ethiopia today, and what ways there are for the Ethiopia's future, for the next generation, for your and my children, to create peaceful Ethiopia. So the first one is the media, reaching out to the people, engaging the people, talking to them, teaching them, of course, finally transforming that negativity into positivity. And secondly, regional administration and opposition parties really changing that heart of I am the only one. Let's learn from our previous history. Look at what happened in Tigray, just our neighbors. Nearly 1 million people, lives, young lives, lost as through Obasanjo's interview with Financial Times, as we can read. We are losing. Who is losing in this entire conflict? Ethiopia, no one else. Why should we be targets for maybe foreign invaders? Why should we make our country weaker? So I think intellectuals, political parties, leaders at top as well as bottom level, wherever we are, let's think again. Let's make dialogue a culture. Let's bring peace by peaceful means. Let Christians, Muslims, all believers in God pray for success of Ethiopia to live together and for success of the national dialogue, because national dialogue aims at bringing national consensus, building trust between society and the government and the state, and making dialogue a culture, which are the best way for sustainable development.
This might be my final question. Political transitions in this country usually suffer from this Sisyphus curse. And do you think, Commissioner, this commission will end that curse?
Right. Anyone who starts a new project should start with optimistic view. And the answer must be optimistic, because we have to start at some point. Sisyphus was cursed, Sisyphus syndrome of pushing that bowl of stone to the top of the mountain was as a result of the curse, the sin that he committed, or she committed. But if there is confession of the sin, then there is forgiveness as well. National dialogue is a process of confession, speaking the truth, seeking the truth, bringing out the truth, and then this is my mistake. I couldn't see from the way you saw it. This is our mistake. So enough is enough. We had enough war so far. Then let's confess to each other. We made mistakes here. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's not repeat from that. So let's stop this Sisyphus syndrome, and let's stop protest syndrome. Protest is the exact opposite of Sisyphus in Greek mythology again. Protest is going innovative way, changing way, and releasing hidden potential. So if we are potentially capable of making war of Sisyphus, then we are also capable of potential of making peace, making reconciliation with protest as well. So we can follow this positive way. I am optimistic. Therefore, yes, national dialogue can stop this curse if we can confess, if we can come together, if we dialogue, because dialogue is a search of truth, and the truth shall set us free.
Dr. Yonas Adaye, thank you for taking your time to talk to us. I'm sure this will not be the last time. So we'll meet again, we'll talk again, we'll discuss again. Thank you for taking your time to talk to us.
John, thank you very much indeed. It's not really the last. We have a long and rocky road to work together, God willing. And victory, success is a process rather than simply the end goal. So we have a lot to do, but the future is bright.
Thank you. Have a good day, Professor.
And you too. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
This is all we have for today. Thank you for your company. The presenter of the program, I'm Yohannes Lijalem, and have a great time with the rest of Amhara Media Corporation program.